Well, let's go ahead and get started. I think even though we're in a variety of physical locations, we want to acknowledge the Lekwungen peoples on whose traditional territory the University of Victoria stands, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanish peoples whose historical relationships with the land and water continue to this day. So I'd like to welcome you all to this Student Award Recognition event. Delighted to see you all and to have you here. These are student awards that are granted through a variety of donations to the Institute of Aging and Lifelong Health. The Institute itself is committed to promoting both basic and applied research to improve the health and quality of life of individuals across the life course. And this is a really wonderful opportunity for us to meet with each other and to listen about some of the recent research activities that some of these awards have made possible by some of our graduate students. So I'd like to get right into it. This is going to be an exciting event for us to exchange and hear from everyone's research here. I'd like to remind people we're also used to Zoom these days, to mute your microphones when you're not speaking. And I'd like to also begin to say a special welcome to a number of our guests, several of which have made donations that have made these awards possible. Moses Mukasa is Development Officer for the Faculty of Social Sciences at UVic. Chris Ferguson, founder of Bridgeable, one of North America's most awarded independent design consultancy companies, and he's also co-founder of Service Design Canada. He's representative for the Ferguson Graduate Research Award in Digital Health. Kathy Nurmi, Senior Manager, Individual Plans, Pacific Blue Cross, and she's here representing the PBC Health Benefits Society Scholarship in Lifelong Health. And Margaret Klatt, President of the UVic Retirees Association, and she is representative of the UVic Retirees Association Award. So I'd like to begin. I'll be just quickly introducing each faculty supervisor, and then they'll introduce their student for the particular award that was received. And I'd like to begin by introducing Dr. Deborah Sheets and the UVic Retirees Association Award. Deborah. Deborah?
Apologies. Stepped away for one moment here. So I'm introducing Maddie Cervantes. Was that what you wanted to do? Okay. So Maddie is one of my former graduate students. Maddie's a mestizo woman born in the peninsula of California, Baja California, Mexico. She draws on a strong background in psychology with a focus on health within mental, social, and environmental domains. She earned a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in psychotherapy. And in 2018, she received a 2-year grant from the Science and Technology Council in Mexico for graduate studies at UVic. She completed her program in SDH in December, and now she's in the interdisciplinary studies, doctoral studies program. And out of breath, I was running. Her research thesis focuses on the well-being of caregivers. She worked with the Voices in Motion choir and did a lot of advanced quantitative analyses with our data, which was an arts-based intervention, a choir called Voices in Motion. So she's an amazingly creative researcher. She's very interested in gerontechnology, mental health, and arts-based types of research. And it's really a pleasure to have the chance to introduce her today. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sheets. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Dr. Scott Hofer, and also I want to acknowledge also the presence here of Dr. McDonald, who is also one of my co-supervisor, and his guidance has been very relevant for my master's studies. So I would like to start with my presentation. I will share my screen. There we go. And now I I hope you can see the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you everyone for allowing me to share this study today. The title of my research is Positive Impacts of Participating in Acquired Intervention on the Psychosocial Well-Being of Dementia Caregivers. This study, as Deborah mentioned, has received financial support from the National Council for Science and Technology, specifically for my grad studies, but also the project as Voices in Motion. I want to acknowledge the funding support from the Alzheimer's Society Research Program and the Pacific Alzheimer Research Foundation. And as I say, thank you to my co-supervisors, Dr. Deborah Schiff, Stuart McDonald, and Andrea Smith from Sociology. The territorial acknowledgement, I think we did it all together, but I want also to acknowledge with respect the traditional lands in which we are studying, playing, learning, and sharing. Also, I would like to mention today that today is my father, will be my father, 93 years old birthday. He will be 93 today, but he passed away in 2009. And so today is a very special day, January 21st, and I want to dedicate this presentation to his memory and also to my, with infinite love to my mother, who was his dementia caregiver for 8 years. And this is part of my motivation to research this theme as well. As you know, dementia, it's a worldwide concern because actually currently we have 50 million people with dementia, accordingly to the World Health Organization. And the Public Health Agency of Canada reports that 9 persons are diagnosed with dementia every hour in Canada. Compared to other kinds of caregivers, caregivers of persons living with dementia are at higher risk of experiencing social isolation, emotional distress, depressive symptoms, and all of these can adversely affect their psychosocial well-being. And as we know, as the number of people diagnosed with dementia rises, so does the need for more dementia caregivers. So I think that we need to look for solutions and alternatives to support dementia caregivers. There are different ways to support, but I believe that non-pharmacological alternatives are one of those great ideas. And arts-based intervention, specifically acquired intervention, such as Voices in Motion Choir, it's a great alternative, low cost-effective, and non-pharmacological intervention. I think that singing in a choir, we know because with the literature review and other projects similar to this, singing in a choir and the impact of music is such an important piece. They can increase well-being, increase positive emotions, decrease negative effects and anxiety levels. They can also increase social connections and decrease the stigma of dementia. So the objectives or purposes for this study are to explore the impact of dementia caregivers participating in acquired intervention and to explore the levels of distress and the psychosocial well-being, but not only to explore those, but also to explore the association between them in a time-varying approach, which is across time during the choir seasons. And I did this with a model. Well, I will explain more about the methods later in the next slide, but I wanted to explore the association specifically between social activities and affect and caregiver distress and affect. And affect, I'm referring to positive and negative affect, and I will explain more about that later as well. Also, the psychosocial well-being is a multidimensional construct, and for this study, it has been operationalized as containing three main domains, which are emotional dimension, affective dimension, and social dimension. So with these three main dimensions, I use 3 measures, 3 instruments to measure those 3 components of the psychosocial well-being. And just to reiterate the Voices in Motion project, it's an intergenerational choir, a community-based choir for people with dementia and their caregivers. So they had the opportunity to participate, not only the people with dementia, but also family, friends, and caregivers. And the first Voices in Motion choir in Victoria was launched as a pilot project in January 2018. So the data that I used was from 2018 and 2019. And I want to explain here more about the methods. Actually, to go more in detail to that, the participants, they were 34 dyads, a caregiver with the person with dementia, but this study is focused only on the caregivers. Yes, so the age mean was 68 years, and 81% were female and 18.8 were male. This is consistent with the literature and with the things that we know already, that usually female are more the majority of people who is in the role of caregiving, right? Then the data were collected using surveys, and this study used the data from the caregiver survey, specifically from 3 sections, as I mentioned it, according to the multi-dimensional model that I share with you. These 3 sections of the survey I use to measure affect, social activities, and caregiver distress using the SARIT burden interview, information from social activities from the REACH protocol, and the positive and negative affect schedule known as PANAS to measure affect. So for the analysis, this study uses longitudinal data, and a measurement burst design was used. A multi-level coupled model of change was employed to examine 2 variant association with in-person and between person. That was part of the purposes that I explained it in the slide that I just passed. So when I'm talking about within person, I will be talking about the individual impact or the intra-individual impact, and between person will be more like a group level, a group impact. And the reason I want to clarify this is because we have a limited time today, so I curated I selected the most relevant graphs to share with you today, with the most that I consider the most relevant findings to talk about positive impacts. And before we go to the findings and to share the graphs, I want also to show you this equation that maybe can can be very complex, but because this study is it's with a quantitative approach, we use this equation, and it's a very important one to go deeper in the looking for answers. So it's going to be a key one for the graphs that I'm going to show you today. And just let me move this here. Thank you. So the coupled model of change for the association between caregiver distress and positive affect at the within person level, we have this graph here. And what you can see, it's a graph that is decreasing, right? So what it means that on occasions when caregiver distress is higher, positive affect tends to decrease or diminish. It's a within person level, and it's consistent with the with what we were expecting, right? Because if you have more caregiver distress, positive affect will be diminished. And then for caregiver distress and negative affect, we found the opposite trend, which means that negative affect is increasing by every unit of increase of caregiver distress. If we have more caregiver distress, we have more negative affect. That is what is this graph telling us, and it's between person. So this is a result that was found in a group level. Also talking about another interesting graph, an important one that I found in my study, it's also in the between person or at the group level. And this graph indicates that when social activities increased by 1 unit, there was a corresponding increase as well in positive affect in between person level. This is important because it means that when people was more engaged, or it is suggesting us that when a person was more engaged in a social activity, their positive affect will increase. So the findings overall showcase a significant association between caregiver distress and affect across time. But let's specify which affect are we talking about, right? So importantly, when caregiver distress was higher, positive affect diminished and negative affect increases. Also, it showed, and this is a finding that makes sense because the expectation is that every time with caregiver distress increase will be an association parallel within the increasing of negative affect. Also, this study showcases an increase of positive affect in association with an increase in engagement in social activities. The choir intervention then may have a positive impact on caregiver psychosocial well-being. The implications of this study advances our understanding of the impact of an arts-based intervention, in this case the choir intervention known as Voices in Motion, as a support source for dementia caregivers. This research can contribute to knowledge and offer perspectives on how facilitating social engagement, such as the choir intervention, may represent a promising low-cost lifestyle intervention and a non-pharmacological alternative to support the well-being of dementia caregivers. Findings can also inform efforts to develop community arts-based programs to support family caregivers. Thank you so much, and I just want to reiterate that particular attention should be given to high-burden caregivers who are vulnerable to the negative effects of dementia caregiver. We should take care of them. We should hence be targeted by psychosocial interventions such as the choir that can help them to cope while fostering and protecting their psychosocial well-being. Thank you so much.
Maddie, thank you so much. Well done. Yeah, we can't hear all the clapping, but I've just seen it.